It's great to see you all again. I hope you are all staying well and staying sane in what has been really a pretty grueling ordeal that we are all experiencing. We talked a little bit last time about how this is historically unprecedented and that we are living through really difficult times together in a unprecedented situation that we don't have a way to talk to mentors about because none of us have lived through it. But as an institution, we've pulled together and we did amazing things in the spring. We went in almost entirely online, and certainly in this college, that was a huge lift. And I'm so appreciative to all of you for what you did to pull our students through. I know some of you are still working through licensure requirements and labs that you were not able to get into in the spring, and that there have been many complications associated with getting back into those labs. I know that's been a big lift for the College of Technology, but you all have done amazing work. Our students completed their certificates and degrees in the college, and we were able to do that even though we had these difficult circumstances due to the hard work that you all put into that effort. We're going to talk quite a bit about fall today and about plans for the fall, but I do want to assure you that we will be making different types of arrangements for College of Tech CTE courses going forward. So a lot of what you're hearing about the general plan for fall will look different in the College of Tech, and we'll talk more about that as we go forward here. I wanted to give you just a few other updates. We also have been working throughout this, or will be working throughout the summer to provide additional support to all of you, to faculty on distance delivery. So there are some additional workshops and additional opportunities if you are interested in taking advantage of those. While we do believe we will be in a much more normal environment in the fall, it won't be completely normal, unfortunately, unless we see some pretty dramatic changes happen on the public health front. It will be more normal than what we've experienced, but we will still have some distance delivery requirements. So if you're interested in pursuing additional training, those are available through the ITRC. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that. And then we are doing some things to make sure that our students have a good experience in the fall. Now, for those of you who are teaching in very hands-on environments, this will apply less to your students than to the students as a whole, but we are ordering additional Chromebooks that students can check out, and certainly that would be for any student. We are ensuring additional expansion of Wi-Fi on campus. We did that in the spring term, but we're doing that again. And then we're working really hard on making sure that we have health and safety in all of our classroom areas as well as the campus as a whole. And those changes we'll talk more about, but you'll start to see those. And those of you who are on campus already know about that, but you'll start to see a lot more sanitation and a lot more processes associated with making sure that our environments are clean and ready for the fall. And with that, I just have a couple of slides, and Darren's going to progress those for me. Scott Rasmussen, your fearless and amazing dean, is our co-chair here today. So I will be turning this over to him in just a minute because he has a few updates for you. But before we do that, I also wanted to just mention that I know that you are in construction in the Eames complex. We have been able to move forward on that project despite all of the things that have happened that could have prevented progress there. And I appreciate your patience and your willingness to work with us as we move forward with what has been a very significant construction project and has created a lot of disruption and has taken a long time. So very excited to look forward to the grand opening of the Eames complex in October. And that will be a really culminating moment for this college and for the university. So we're excited about that. Looking forward to a bright future in the College of Tech. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who I believe has a few updates for you.
Thank you, Laura. I would echo everything that you've said about the heavy lift, and I'm so proud of our faculty and staff. I don't know that we even begin to understand some of the sacrifices that many of you have made to make this experience for students something that has been not only just palatable, but I think exciting in many ways. I know that some have had, some problems with this whole distance learning thing, but as I've gone around and talked with students the last week or two since we got back in the labs, they seem happy and excited, and I've heard some great stories about the many things that you have done to go out of your way to prepare some really amazing online courses. So my hat's off to you. Many of us couldn't even spell Zoom just a couple of months ago, and now it's like our life, right? So I appreciate so very much all that you've done, and you've all been very amazing. I did want to just say a couple of things about the Eames complex. Members of the state were in the complex yesterday, passing off and looking at areas A and B, which will be our auto collision and repair and our student services and Center for New Directions areas, and they passed with flying colors. There's just a few little odds and ends, I think, that will need to be finished there, and then within a short week or two, we'll start moving some of those folks into those areas. So that's very exciting. We have slated October 2nd for the grand opening, which we will open up to our community, and we'll have a special ribbon cutting ceremony and things like that. We hope to have all of the programs that we had designed to move up there in the facility by October. Most will move this summer, and all but I think welding may be a little later into September based on some of the work that still has to be done there. But by and large, most of the programs will be in there in the summer. But we've talked about having a special day that we'll designate sometime in August or September, where we will invite all of you, faculty and staff, to come up. And maybe what we'll do this fall is hold our all-school meeting up there in the Eames complex, and then have some tours so that you all have a chance to walk around and see what's been done. It's pretty amazing. So we look forward to that. I also wanted to give a big shout out to Courtney and all of our staff in marketing and recruiting. We had, I think, a pretty phenomenal graduation exercise out there in the parking lot. And I was so impressed with all the work that was done to prepare that. And I appreciate all the faculty and staff. So many of you showed up, and I think students really, really appreciated that. So we even had a couple of students from other colleges that came through just because they heard about it. So that was a great deal. And we had also Charisse put on a great graduation for our START students as usual. So we held that in the parking lot as well a couple of days prior to our other one. Both, I think, were super experiences for our students and gave them an opportunity to kind of feel like they had participated in some sort of graduation. So thank you all for being a part of that and making that very special for students. Those are primarily the things that I wanted to cover, other than just expressing my sincere thanks for your super dedication and all that you've done. We look forward to a great fall as we've begun getting the word out that we will be open for face-to-face courses this fall. We've seen our enrollments increase. We know that many students have been waiting to make sure they could get back into face-to-face courses because they prefer that so much. But we're seeing that happen, and so we're looking forward to some great enrollments and some great opportunities again this fall. We recognize that still we're going to be faced with some of these CDC regulations that make it somewhat more difficult than we would like. But I would encourage all of you as faculty and staff to put on your best smiling face and help students recognize that we're doing the very best that we can to ensure that they can have a really positive and productive experience in fall classes in the College of Technology. I feel strongly that the attitudes and ways that you present what we're going to be doing in the fall and what we have been doing this summer make a tremendous difference on the attitudes of students and their willingness to sort of partner in, all of the things that we're kind of sharing right now in terms of not being able to do things the way we'd really like to. But I think we all pitch in and have a good attitude. We'll be able to have some great courses this fall and get our students through what we need to get them through. So with that, I'll turn it back to Laura, and it's great to see all of your faces today.
Thanks, Scott. It certainly will be nice when we can all be in the same space again. And I think we will appreciate it so much more than we ever would have before, not having had it. This has certainly been a transformative experience for everyone worldwide. And I will just reiterate what Scott said about having so much pride and feeling so great about what you all have done. I've heard from so many students about their CTE experiences this spring and about how hard they knew their faculty were working. So I really appreciate all of those sacrifices that were made and understand that there were some personal sacrifices as well. It's not easy to do this from home with kids and pets and all of the other things that we have going on and the stresses of the pandemic itself. So I want you to know that the provost office is committed to providing support going forward because we understand that these are different situations and we may need different supports, and then we'll even talk about today. So if you have ideas for how to support the faculty or how to support our staff as we go forward, please do not hesitate to reach out to my office with those ideas because we are looking at everything we can. With that, I wanted to shift just temporarily here to talk a little bit about closing the loop on the budget and commend the College of Technology for your budget process, which by all accounts was inclusive and supportive and very much a community effort. And that has resonated across the campus. So I really appreciate your efforts to make those difficult decisions in an inclusive environment. If you want to know the links to the final versions of the budgets, we have linked to the slides here so that you have those links. These slides will be available after our town hall meeting, and we've left the links in so that you can link to those. The slides are for academic affairs overall and for the College of Technology, but we also have additional information on the budget website if you want to see other information and the overall picture for the university that is available through the budget website at ISU as well.
Laura, did you want me to show a couple of the slides on?
Yeah, that would be great, Glenn.
Each unit. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, and let me introduce Glenn. You all know our Vice President for Finance, but he's joining us today, for which we are grateful. And go ahead, Glenn.
All right, let me see if I can do this screen share right. Ginny may need to help me here. So Laura reviewed to a budget overview document hopefully that's what's up on the screen. Budget overview document that there was a link to. This is on the budget website. I believe we also had something that came out from Marcom pointing you to this document, and it walks through what we did collectively in the budget process. But I want to point out just a couple of things to you. If we go to page 7, you'll see the types of things we did. I mean, this was monumental. We literally had an $11.7 million budget deficit going into next year. And on top of it, we have a $5 million task for one-time reductions that the state gave us. So we were going into next year with a $16.5 million problem. And Leadership Council came together, and I'm sure they had all of your support. Scott had your support at the college as well in coming up with how can we address the budget challenge we had. And literally every area across campus participated. This wasn't a situation where one unit or two units or the College of Tech took the lion's share. Everybody participated. But again, if you go to page 7, and I'm not going to walk through each of these, but there's 9 different types of budget reduction actions that we took, different types of position eliminations, other areas we eliminated operating. But what I want to call your attention to is on page 8 of this, it characterizes the types of cuts we did. So of the $11.7 million structural deficit that we had, $4.5 million of that solution came from just permanently eliminating vacant positions. Another 2.2, we ended up having to eliminate filled positions. And I know that we've lost some of our colleagues in departments all across campus, but that was 2.2 million. We permanently reduced irregular and temporary part-time and positions, almost $1 million of those. We reduced 3.6 million of operating expenditures. And we do have several investments that were going to lead to additional revenues. And so we had some additional revenue of 480,000 in that exercise. Those are just different categories of ways to look at how we came up with the 11.7. In terms of the additional 5 million that we have to return to the state next year, 2.7 of that is going to be from one-time salary savings that will not stay at the units but come back centrally just for next fiscal year, and then another 2 million generated from the furlough program. I'm sure there'll be some questions today about that as well. So that's how we came up with the 16 million. If we look at by division, you can see everyone across the board participated. 4.8% of the budget was reduced in academic affairs. The division of health sciences was 4.8, research was 5.8, athletics 4.1, student affairs 4, advancement 6, finance and business affairs 6.6, and 13% from the office of president. Another way to look at the reductions is by employee group. You know, in the past, since I've been here, I've been hearing all sorts of stories in the past that, well, the administration took the bulk of it, or the faculty took the bulk of it. We were trying to be very open and transparent, and of the savings for employee groups, 3.8%, there was a 3.8% reduction in classified salaries, 6.7 in non-classified, and 3.3 in faculty. So again, all groups were represented. The one final slide, and then we'll get back to non-financial issues here. If we look at the 3.8 million in academic affairs, I want to go to, let's see if this slide, and I don't know which slides came up, but do you have the budget summary by unit? Is that what came up on the screen? Or
it didn't change.
it didn't change?
Uh-uh.
Let me do this. Let me share again. How about that?
That's great.
Okay, so the 3.8 million that I just showed you for academic affairs, if we want to look at how that was spread across academic affairs, 4.3% from Cal to 5.1% for COSI, 5% for College of Tech. You can see every college participated. So I guess I want to just thank you all for being participants in this process. It was a very difficult process, but what I really want to convey today is the fact that all areas of campus participated. And while it's painful, we're all sharing in the pain. It's not any one area doing the lift.
Thank you, Glenn. Really appreciate that additional information, which we are planning on sending out as well. Some of this is available on the website, and the breakdown by college we will send out here in the next couple of days. We'll take questions about budget as well as everything else here in a bit, but I wanted to move to our plans for fall. We're getting a lot of questions from all of you about how that's working, what we are planning, how it will function. And I wanted to just go over the sort of broad planning effort that we have underway as we move into looking at what the fall term will be. We have the rebound plan for the university, which has been posted, and that is a link is available here. We also have 4 committees, and we've sent communication out about those committees, and some of you are serving on those committees, but those committees are really undertaking the hard work of preparing us for fall, and they are divided into the employee category, the community category, the instruction category, and then I'm missing one, student, and then student category as well. So the student, employee, community, and instruction. For the purposes of academic affairs, we are most involved with the instruction committee because it is the lifeblood, of course, of the academic units. And that committee has broad membership. It has membership from all of the colleges. Faculty Senate is represented on it, student affairs. And as I said, some of you are working on that committee. That committee is evaluating our class schedule and making adjustments to it so that we can safely deliver face-to-face courses in the fall and also meet the needs of our students as well across the footprint of the schedule and across space. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I also wanted to talk about the fall schedule. We have changed a few dates in the fall term. And that communication's gone out, but certainly we can take any questions about it. Bottom line is that we are starting on our regular start date, which was August 17, already earlier than a lot of our sister institutions in surrounding states. And that is why we don't need to change that date in order to get 75 instructional days in prior to the end of the term, even by making the changes that we are going to make. The main change is that we will finish face-to-face instruction in almost all sections, with some exceptions, some of which will certainly be CTE courses, by Thanksgiving. And to do that, we have to take the Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week as instructional days. So instead of having the week of Thanksgiving off, we will have Monday and Tuesday as instructional days, and Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday will be the fall break. By doing that, we get 2 more instructional days, which means that we can complete face-to-face instruction for almost all sections, and then have an online finals week that is the week after Thanksgiving. It essentially, for students, for the student experience, shortens our term, our 16-week term, by about a week. We're not changing the grading deadline, however, and we're not changing the day that we plan to roll grades. Those things will stay the same. So faculty will get an extra a week to grade, a grading week, or to handle any makeup exams or things that have to be wrapped up in the term. So that's what the fall schedule will look like. That announcement has gone out. You see that here, the link to that, and I certainly can take any questions that you might have about that as well. All right, Darren, next slide. So back to the instruction working group, the group that's working on our fall schedule. It has some, it's been given some direction that I thought would be helpful for you. It's using an evaluated classroom capacity model as opposed to a percentage. And the reason that we're doing that is because if we said we're dropping the capacity in all of our sections by 50%, which was one of the things that we talked about doing, that does not meet the CDC guideline for social distancing. So we actually have to evaluate every classroom and the configuration of every classroom to determine what the actual social distancing requirements are for those individual spaces. Facilities is working very hard. Glenn's team is working very hard to evaluate every space on campus, instructional space. That work is ongoing. They have made a lot of progress. We probably are, we were at about 25% complete just about last week. So I'm imagining that they're getting close to significant, percentage of those classrooms having been evaluated. One of the things that's happening is that we're finding out that in a lot of our fixed seat classrooms, we're losing a lot of capacity. Now, of course, in CTE, you have a different situation that you're dealing with in many cases, but we are seeing pretty significant reductions in capacity in all of our instructional spaces. And as a result, we will have some changes to the schedule to accommodate the need to expand those sections over a wider footprint. Okay, next slide. So some of the things that the fall term scheduling group is doing and things that you can expect to see is that first and second year courses are being prioritized for face-to-face delivery. That essentially means that we're starting with those first and second year 100 and 200 level sections because we want to make sure that we're preserving a face-to-face experience for incoming new students in this process. It means that a lot of 300 and 400 level courses will probably be in a high flex environment, which means that half of the class will be face-to-face and the other half will be online at any given time. And as I go through these, and I'm noting here that I know that we'll have a lot of exceptions in the CTE area. Social distancing, we're basing on the CDC recommendation for higher ed, which is still 6 feet of distancing. So we don't have another recommendation to go by, and so we're using the 6 feet. That's why we're losing so much capacity in some of these spaces. All spaces on campus will be prioritized for instruction. That means that we're taking classrooms, spaces that have traditionally been used for something else. And you'll see some courses, probably not CTE courses, but courses scheduled in the student union building, for example, which will largely be instructional in order to handle the capacity need that we have now. And then we're adding technology in a lot of classrooms, purchasing additional cameras, as I mentioned, purchasing Chromebooks for students to check out, and also purchasing some laptops for faculty as well. All right, next slide. So in order to do this, we have to make some changes to the class scheduling process that we haven't had before. We're freezing the class schedule for about 3 weeks to manage these changes. You'll see that class schedule be frozen here in the next, probably Monday or the next week. We're moving some courses, of course, based on distancing requirements into bigger spaces, but to be frank, we're gonna run out of big spaces at a certain point, which is why we're prioritizing the first and second year courses. We're considering all large spaces on campus for instruction, including the ballroom, which we have done the analysis on, and it seats about 75 students. So that's good. And then we're gathering COVID-19 capacity information from facility services in order to handle this load. We're calling it COVID capacity. Now, if something happens between now and fall that alleviates the need to actually have all of this social distancing, we would ease up on these requirements. But because we have to get the scheduling done now, we have really no choice but to utilize the standard that we have currently and to reconfigure the schedule based on that standard. All right, next slide. So we sent out an instruction memo about this. You will get more information as well. Those of you who do scheduling or those of you who are involved in scheduling, you probably have a lot of specific questions and we can answer those in the registrar's office or in academic affairs. And we also have posted information on our website as well. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. We have a little less than a half an hour, 30 minutes for questions, and they can be, anything that's on your mind, or if you want to talk about the fall or exceptions to our social distancing requirement for certain courses. I expect to see those coming from CTE in the same way that you already have done. I know that some of your programs have already submitted the health plans as exceptions to get back in the labs. That process will be the same for the fall term. And we recognize fully that some sections simply cannot be socially distanced to a 6-foot standard. Those can go forward as exceptions, and they'll just need a health plan that's approved by our health group in order to move forward. And many of you have already done that. And I just want to give a shout out to Debbie Ronnieberg for really doing an amazing job on getting all of your health plans in order for the summer. It will look the same in the fall, that process. And with that, I'll turn it over to all of you. And the question process is the same as we had before. I'm not sure if I was muted when I talked about this earlier, but those questions will go to Ginny, and Ginny is joining us again as our moderator.
Laura, we have our first question. Can you talk to us about the return to the office?
Yes, absolutely. So the office return is managed by the rebound plan, the ISU rebound plan. We shared the link to that. It has broad parameters about how the rebound plan for the campus as a whole functions. And then your own college has a back to work plan as well, a roaring back plan that's in alignment with that university-wide plan. And Scott could probably speak to that if you have specific questions about it. But bottom line is we're in a 4-phase process that's managed by the state. And we are currently in phase 3, hoping to go to phase 4 within not next week, but the week after. And we'll see how the health data guides us on that. But some things to keep in mind, even with the rebound plan, even with being back in the office, we are requiring certain safeguards to be put in place for admin assistants, for example, who are public facing. We want face shields on their desks. We want hand sanitizer at all traffic stations, blocking off the floor for those public-facing employees at a 6-foot mark. And if you have concerns or if you need supplies, we have links to get those for you, and also additional support that we can link you to if you have questions about how to actually do this. Darren, can you put up that rebound plan slide again? And we could actually just, I think that link is live. We can probably go into it and give you an idea of what that looks like. For those of you who are in high risk categories, we do not want you to stop social isolation or social distancing. And we are working on a number of tools for our units to make sure that those people that have to continue to work from home do not feel completely, we all feel isolated right now, I think, but that don't feel isolated once a lot of us are back in the office. I want to make sure that we are really explicit that we don't expect everybody to be back in the office all at one time. This is a process that we're undertaking. Health and safety has to be our priority. And we are anticipating a high need for flexibility, a high need for understanding. If you, for any reason, do not feel well, or if you are uncomfortable, we are supporting telework as long as your supervisor is aware and is comfortable with it, and it is consistent with the planning that's gone on in that unit. So this just gives you an idea of what the back to work plans look like. I really like that very top bullet there. Please show kindness and respect for each other. We are all in this together. Everybody has a different comfort level with what we are experiencing, and we need to make sure that we appreciate and validate the differences that we all are experiencing. And if that means that some have to continue to telework, we will support that. And if it means that you're ready to come back to the office, we want to make sure that we maintain physical distance of 6 feet, that these safeguards are put into place in our work spaces, and that we all wear facial coverings when we're in public areas.
Okay, related to this, Laura and Scott, can Scott speak specifically about what our plan is, and will there be an email from his office with guidance?
I did meet with the department chairs and directors this morning, and we went over this. And so each of the departments will be rolling out a plan. So they'll be contacting the faculty and their departments to kind of go over what Laura's just expressed. And that will roll up to the dean's office and then to academic affairs. So I would just echo that we're trying to be very lenient. We have some faculty, for example, and staff who have new babies or are taking care of their parents, or situations where they may feel like they're close to vulnerable populations. And so we are being very lenient in allowing them to continue to work from home and do what they need to do to feel safe and secure in that area. So we have put together a plan where we are putting up some plexiglass guards in front of areas where the population will be coming into our departments to help with that. And aside from that, I think many of you have been doing most of the things that we're already talking about here as you've come back into the lab. So look for information from your department chairs in the next few days, and we'll be putting together those implementation roaring back plans.
Thank you, Scott. During classes, Laura, and I guess Scott too, will students be required to wear face masks in class if they maintain 6 feet of separation, and what actions can faculty take if that is not upheld by the students?
We've had a lot of conversation about this, and this is a big topic nationwide. But what we have, and there will be some recommendations going to admin council from the employee and the student group about this, and that conversation is ongoing, and additional information will be coming forth to the campus. But at this point, faculty members can expect that students will wear facial coverings in the classroom. Now that said, we know that we won't have 100% compliance with our student population. So it's really incumbent on chairs and our deans to work with faculty on strategies for how to handle that issue when that does occur in the classroom. We do anticipate that we will have high compliance rates, but especially as we will do a campaign for our students based on the idea that they are protecting their faculty. They may not be as concerned for their own well-being, and I think we're seeing pretty good evidence that the 20-something age group is, frankly, a little less concerned about the pandemic. But, if you think about that age group, they're less concerned about pretty much everything. I mean, it's one of the benefits of being that age is that you don't have the wisdom and the fear that comes with wisdom. I mean, we all know what the bad things that can happen. They just haven't had those experiences yet. So we will, we are anticipating some tension in the classroom over this. So Academic Affairs is going to come up with some tools for faculty to help faculty manage these processes. Bottom line, though, this is a requirement similar to what we expect faculty and to be able to require of students. So at the extreme end of this, you can ask a student to leave your classroom if they're not complying with the standards that you've created in that room. We're hoping not to get to that point with this issue. We're hoping that we can get really high compliance by our students so that faculty are not put in that difficult position. And we're going to do that in a number of ways. We're going to post it on the classroom door that face coverings are expected in all public spaces and that classrooms are public spaces. And we are going to hand them out at orientation and talk about this at student orientation and manage it in a number of communication channels to students. And then Academic Affairs will come up with some tools for faculty in terms of what do you do if you have a student who's just refusing to comply. And in some cases, you can ask them to leave. It would be no different than if you said, I need no cell phones in the classroom for this exam. And if someone used their cell phone for the exam, you can certainly ask them to leave the room. So we will be looking at some tools because what we don't want is, a lot of conflict over these issues that distract from what the good work you're all doing. And so we're working on some tools, but that's where we are. The expectation is that students will wear face coverings, and they'll do it because it's the right thing to do for their own safety, but primarily to protect others. And so that will be the basis of that campaign.
Thanks, Laura. And I had a question that I was actually able to answer that I'll relay to the group as well. Someone asked if there are specific branded signage that must be posted, or can we make our own? And if you look at the website document that Darren pulled up at isu.edu/roaringback, so that's the stage 2 and 3 guidelines, inside that set of guidelines, there is a link for signage, and there's pre-branded templates in there for you to use and print out that makes sense for your space. Next question, Laura. When will we know our specific classroom capacity for fall planning so we can get alternate plans in place?
Such a great question. I wish I could say that we could do that today. It's in process. And like I said, there's a process that we're going through, and I can have Lyle update you on the committee. He's the co-chair of the instruction committee that's working on this. But bottom line is we're going through a prioritization process of identifying all the class spaces and their capacity, their new COVID capacity, and then prioritizing 100 and 200 level courses for face-to-face and moving them into bigger sections or bigger spaces if we need to. And then we're looking at the 300 and 400 level classes as well in a prioritized matrix. So go ahead, Lyle, if you have anything you want to add to that.
Well, there's really not much to add to that. except for that it's a pretty big task. And so facilities actually has a massive task in going through, and they're actually going to the individual spaces themselves, as opposed to just taking and saying, okay, this is what 40% would do, this is what 30% would do. So they're doing the actual measurements. I guess I think that's probably going to take about another week for facilities, but that it turns out that's a guess. And then once we have that information, then we can, I think, proceed pretty quickly with how far over capacity we are in different spaces. So we hope to do this over about a 3-week period, so, and then we would be ready to move forward. We're going as fast as we can.
Thanks, Lyle. That's why we have to close the schedule to further changes, is we don't want room changes or other kinds of changes in the schedule while we're doing this pretty massive reset of the fall term.
Thanks, Laura. Next question, what are the projections for new students in the fall for College of Tech and campus-wide?
I think we have Lynn on the call, actually, or Stacy, maybe. Stacy or Lynn, are you joining us today from Student Affairs? Because they could give you a better enrollment projection than I'm going to be able to, just off the top of my head. I'm not seeing them. We are somewhat stable, I would say, or at least the most recent numbers for our recurring student population, but we've been down for incoming new. And so we're working hard to reach out to all of those students. I know that recruiting has started to reach out to the colleges as well, asking you all to reach out to some of those incoming new students, because what we are concerned about, and we know is happening, is that those students, like all of us, are concerned about what they can expect and what the experience will be on campus. And a lot of them are telling us they are not going to go to school if it's online. They'll take a gap year. They just are not comfortable with that. And so we're getting a lot of information out just in the last few days from the institution, talking about that we will be face-to-face in the fall with these restrictions. It won't look exactly the same, but we are doing everything we can to preserve face-to-face experiences, and that they can expect to see that, and hoping that starts to change that trajectory a bit. It's not dramatic. I mean, it's dramatic compared to other years, but we weren't down like some of our institutions were. I think we were lagging about 12% in the last data that I looked at, which is significant, but not like what some institutions are seeing nationwide. So we are heartened by that, and we think if we can get this information out about the fact that we do have plans for fall, for those who don't want to be face-to-face, we have online options, and then for those who do, we are planning a face-to-face start. I think that will start to make a difference. We're starting to see that already start to have some impact. But you can imagine students are afraid and they are uncertain. So anything that we can do, if you reach out to your own students and reassure them, that will be very helpful. And College of Tech, I don't know, Scott, I didn't answer that part of the question. I'm not sure where we are today. I don't know if you've looked at that yourself in the last few days.
I haven't, but I think we may have Tiffany online here who may be able to give us a current update. Are you with us, Tiffany?
I am. I had to sign in on my phone. They were updating my computer. So as a college, right now, we are actually down about 34% as of 10th day last year. We are reaching out to students. We are trying to reach them via email, video, text as well as phone calls. This is an ongoing process. I am working with some departments to go into some of the classrooms that are here this summer to help students register. So we are working on it. Students are wanting to register. It's just trying to get a hold of them first off, and reassuring them what this fall will look like. So this new information that we received with a plan is going to help our office when we're communicating with students. But we are seeing a rise in our enrollments. I've been watching it since registration opened, and every day we tick up a percentage point. We've never ticked up less than a percentage point towards enrollment.
So I guess I would just add that Tiffany, we asked Tiffany this question about maybe a week or two ago, Tiffany, and at that point in time, we were about 50% down from the numbers of 10th day last year. So obviously we're making some great progress there. And Tiffany and her group for the last several years have done an amazing job in terms of getting everybody enrolled early on. And this whole deal has really thrown a monkey wrench in the works there. So I'm glad to hear that we've made that much progress in just a week or so.
And we certainly, go ahead, Scott.
Well, and you have to remember, this is a comparison in where we were at on 10th day, not where we were at actually at this point in time last year. So it's better than it sounds.
Yeah, and that I was going to make that point as well. And this is a late registration cycle. We're expecting our students to make late decisions. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see significant increases in July in a way that we traditionally have seen more of a plateau in July. I think we'll see spikes of enrollment in July.
Laura, next question is about furlough. Is there a formal way that you would like faculty to schedule their furlough days off?
Yes, there are multiple ways to do that. And I'm actually going to have Lyle answer that question because he's been serving on the subcommittee that's looking at how best to handle furloughs for faculty. So go ahead, Lyle.
So HR is developing the forms that faculty will be able to fill out. There'll be and so that's not out yet, but there will be something developed where you can put in. It'll give you how many furlough days you have based on your contract, because there's a difference between a 12-month and a 9-month. It will also let you know how many you would do in each semester. So fall semester, you'll take half of them, and spring semester, you'll take half of them. And so there will be a way for you to select those. And you'll have the opportunity to say, I just want to have my pay reduced an equal amount over the period where I'm taking furloughs, or I would like to have my pay reduced in that particular pay period where I take a furlough. And you'll be able to specify that when the process for putting those in comes out and is developed, and you'll have that flexibility. And it's going to be understandable. It isn't done yet, but that's the way it will work. And so follow-up question that you usually get, do we really have to take them all in, half in one semester, half in the other? And the answer to that is actually yes. So.
Yeah, I can talk about the why of that. And we've had a lot of questions about why can't I just take these all at one time? And the reason is because we will reevaluate whether or not we need the additional furlough days when we get further into the fall term. And we don't want some of you to have taken them all and then have us say, okay, we don't need any more furlough days, and have that be a disadvantage because you took them early. So that's why we're requiring you to split them into two. It is kind of a hassle, I know, because some of you would like to see those all at the same time. But this way, if we decide we don't need them, and let's hope we do, let's hope that we get through the fall term and everything's fine, and we can just say we don't need these furlough days or any more furlough days from our employees. And so hopefully that is what will happen. Lyle, just a quick question on that. If a faculty member is on a 12-month contract and is planning on taking these, well, it would be after July 1, of course, but can they just utilize the employee process for that? So like in my case, when I take a furlough day, I'm just going to record furlough, clear it with my supervisor, and then I can just record it on my my timesheet as furlough time. Can 12-month employee faculty do that as well?
I believe that is how it's going to work. That we haven't gotten as specific as to say exactly how you will record these, but it's my understanding that there will be a new category in the time entry, which is furlough, and then you'll be able to put it in. Similar, it's kind of similar to where we have, holiday comp time, all the different categories we have. Furlough will be a category that will allow you to put those in and record that you did your furlough.
Okay. So there will be multiple ways to do it. In terms, you can just prorate it over your contract, or you can identify specific days. And then because we have an extra week of grading time in the fall term, now that we're changing the calendar, you will have those days available if you want to use those for furlough days as well.
I'll say one more thing. I believe that no matter whether you choose to have your reduction divided up over all the biweekly pay periods, or whether you want to have your furlough pay reductions on the days that you take the furloughs, I think one way or the other, we do want to record the furlough days in some way or another. And so that'll be communicated at the time that we send out this information.
We have two final questions. The next to last, will the college provide face masks for students who do not have them?
I can answer that, Scott. The institution will. So we're not expecting the colleges to do that. It will be institution-wide. And yes, we will make sure that students have face coverings. Now, if they come to class, if my college-going child is going to have a hard time, I'm just going to say right now, keeping track of his face mask, if his life is any indication, unless he transforms into a different person when he gets to college. So we're guessing that our students will not always have these masks with them, even if we give them to them. And as a result, we're going to have to hand them out at the door of classrooms and have them available. But those will be covered by the institution, not the college.
Thanks, Laura. And this last question is for Scott, and then we'll turn it back over to you. Scott, what are the plans for the BASS department, BASS department chair position, both short-term and long-term?
Well, that's a great question, and there will be an email coming out probably tomorrow explaining this. But at this point in time, we are suspending the search for a new department chair, and we have asked Clayne Lambert and Corey Marinus to co-chair and accept responsibilities in that department, covering what Tina has been doing over the past number of years. So they have accepted, and for the foreseeable future, possibly through the entire year of 2021, will act in those positions as co-chairs. Corey overseeing the Center for New Directions and the START program, as well as adult education. And then Clayne will oversee the 4 academic programs and the technical general education area. So we're very appreciative of these two folks and the added responsibilities they'll be taking on. They've agreed, and so we'll be sending out an email to communicate a number of these changes that are taking place. I might just add that we have had some folks who have their employment has ended based on the fact that they've been on grants and other things, and they've done just a phenomenal job but the grant has ended, and in light of some of the Perkins 5 requirements that are coming out this year, we've been careful about how we move forward with some of those positions. So some of those will be changing, and we'll be sending out an email to everyone via Cott Computers in the next few days that kind of discusses all of those changes, as well as the BSS department co-chair idea.
Thanks, Scott. Was that it, Jenny, for questions?
Yep, that's
Well, in
it. Thank you,
closing,
Laura.
I just want to thank Jenny for her help again. Thank you, Jenny. You always do a great job with this. And thank you all for joining us today. I can't tell quite how many people are on still, but I know that many of you are not even on contract right now. So really appreciate your tuning in. I want to thank you for your patience with us as we work through all of these changes that we were not anticipating having to make, of course. And I want to assure you that we are making all of these decisions with your safety as our #1 priority, and with preserving opportunities for students as our #2 priority. That might mean that as we go forward and we see workload impacts, I can tell you that I'm really worried about workload impacts on faculty, and Lyle is worried as well. He called me yesterday to say, I just have to tell you that this is concerning. And he was voted the person in the provost's office to deliver the news that our capacity in our rooms is going to look like it does, and that will likely lead to workload issues. So we've asked faculty to move their courses to distance. We've asked you to prep distance in a way that, especially in this college, you haven't done before in a very short time frame. We've cut budgets, and we've implemented furloughs. So I know that collectively this is a lot. This is a lot to manage, and it is impacting workload. And as a result, I'm asking the deans, and we'll certainly be continuing to have these conversations with the deans, to ease up on service loads to the extent that we can in the fall. We'll probably have something more official about this. We can't eliminate all service. We can't eliminate those things that we have to do for compliance or for accreditation, or that are board, state board requirements. But there are some things that we can look at doing. And we will be doing that in the provost's office with the deans. There are some service components I think we can delay until spring, because we're going to need faculty to have some additional workload capacity to handle all of these things that are impacting the instructional workload and also our students. So I wanted to convey that I'm certainly aware of it. It's what's keeping me up at night right now, is that I'm worried about those workload components. And I'm certainly going to be flexible with plans that deans come forward with to say, this is how we're going to handle this additional workload. So I want to assure you that we are thinking about that and at least starting to plan for that. And with that, I just want to say it's great to see you all again. I can't wait until I can come visit the College of Tech and actually be in one of your labs, because it's always rejuvenating. So I plan to do that, Scott, in the next couple months as you guys all get back up and running. And looking forward to the grand opening of the Eames complex as well. And we'll see you in a couple, probably in a couple months. We'll have another round of town halls. Jenny, don't you think maybe those are going to happen? I think in probably July, late July, as we know a lot more about our planning processes. But of course, you can always reach out to me, and you can always reach out to Scott, and I am certainly available to come meet with the college as well. So good to see you all, and make sure you take breaks during this very difficult time.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Scott.